The bride fell during the waltz, but the groom's reaction made her rethink the decision she'd made. Jennifer felt her hands trembling as she adjusted her veil for the 10th time that morning. The wedding of her dreams had turned into a constant source of anxiety, but she chalked it up to the normal nerves any bride would feel. The most awaited moment arrived when the orchestra began playing the waltz. Tyler extended his hand with a smile she knew so well, the same one that had won her over 2 years ago at the craft fair in Aspen. She took his hand, and they walked to the center of the hall as all the guests formed a circle around them. The music flowed softly through the room, decorated with white roses and golden lights. Jennifer felt like a princess, finally living the fairy tale she had always dreamed of. Tyler guided her gently, spinning her now and then while whispering sweet words in her ear. It was in the 3rd minute of the waltz that everything changed. Jennifer stepped on something that made her lose her balance completely. Her right foot slipped forward, and she felt the world spin before landing hard on the polished wooden floor, her satin dress fanning out around her like a white cloud. The silence that followed lasted only seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Then came the sound she would never forget, Tyler's loud, shrill laughter echoing through the hall. It wasn't nervous or awkward laughter, it was genuine, as if he had just witnessed the funniest scene of his life. "Wow, what a klutz," Tyler shouted, pointing at her while laughing. "Did you all see that? My wife can't even dance without falling." Jennifer's face burned with shame. Tears welled up, but she forced a smile, thinking maybe Tyler was just trying to ease the awkwardness with humor. Some guests laughed nervously, others stayed silent in discomfort. "Tyler, can you help me up?" she asked, reaching out her hand, but he kept laughing, now turning to his friends nearby. "Man, I told you she was a little clumsy, but this exceeded my expectations," he said to Brandon, his best man, who stared awkwardly at the floor. That's when Jennifer heard a quiet voice behind her. It was Mrs. Eleanor, a 78-year-old distant cousin of her mother, who had discreetly approached. "Sweetheart," Mrs. Eleanor whispered, bending down to Jennifer's level, "I saw him put something on the floor a few minutes ago, right where you stepped." Jennifer turned her head quickly, but Mrs. Eleanor had already slipped away, returning to her seat among the guests. Jennifer's heart pounded harder. Could Tyler have... No, she was being paranoid. It must have just been a coincidence. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. With effort, Jennifer managed to stand up on her own, ignoring the hand Tyler finally offered half-heartedly. Her dress was dirty, and she felt a sharp pain in her right hip. Her veil was crooked, and strands of hair stuck to her smudged lipstick. "All right, folks, let's keep the party going," Tyler announced as if nothing had happened. "Accidents happen, right?" He winked at some guests like they were sharing an inside joke. Jennifer murmured an apology and hurried toward the ladies' room, trying to keep her composure. The ballroom of the Dreamland Ranch Resort, which moments ago had felt magical, now seemed like a stage where she had just suffered the greatest humiliation of her life. In the bathroom, she stared at herself in the mirror, trying to pull herself together. Her hands shook as she wiped away the smudged mascara. That's when she realized she had taken the wrong purse. It was Tyler's, which looked identical to hers. Without thinking much, she opened the purse to look for a tissue and found his phone. The screen showed several unread messages. Normally, she would respect his privacy, but something made her hesitate. The messages were from a group called Betting is Worth It. With her heart racing, she opened them. "Tyler, dude, $200 says it won't last 6 months. Ryan, I'll take that. I give it 8 months max. Richard, you guys are mean, ha 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 ha, but I'd bet a year. Tyler, the poor thing is so in love she doesn't suspect a thing. Ryan, when are you doing the little surprise you planned? Tyler, tonight, during the waltz. It's going to be epic." Jennifer felt the world spin again, but this time she was standing. Her hands trembled so much she almost dropped the phone. She reread the messages 3 times, hoping she had misunderstood, but the meaning was crystal clear. Tyler hadn't just caused her fall on purpose, he had also bet on how long their marriage would last. The bathroom door opened, and in walked Patricia, Tyler's mother. She was a 55-year-old woman, always elegant and polite, but she had always seemed to keep a certain distance from Jennifer. "Jennifer, dear, are you okay?" Patricia asked, though her tone lacked the genuine concern one would expect from a mother-in-law. I'm trying to pull myself together," Jennifer replied, quickly locking Tyler's phone. Patricia stepped closer, and to Jennifer's surprise, her face showed a guilty expression. "I need to tell you something," Patricia said, glancing nervously at the door. "I tried to warn you earlier, but Tyler, he wouldn't let me speak to you alone these past few weeks." "What do you mean?" Jennifer felt a chill run down her spine. "My dear, Tyler has always been like this. Even as a child, he had this cruelty. He played mean pranks on his classmates, humiliated his girlfriends. I thought with you it would be different, that he had matured, but..." Patricia took a deep breath before continuing. "Last night, I overheard him talking to his friends about a surprise he had planned for today. Something about you learning your place in front of everyone. I wanted to warn you this morning, but he wouldn't let me see you before the ceremony." Jennifer leaned against the bathroom sink. Everything was starting to make sense now. The little humiliations Tyler had slipped past unnoticed, always disguised as harmless jokes, like that time at the restaurant when he told the waiter she was a little slow at choosing her dish, or when he told her friends about her elevator phobia, even though she had asked him to keep it private. "Why didn't you say anything sooner?" Jennifer asked, trying to steady her voice. Because I was a coward," Patricia admitted. "And because part of me hoped you'd be strong enough to change him. So many mothers do that. They know their son has problems, but hope the love of a good woman will fix him. It was selfish of me." The two fell silent for a moment. Jennifer felt like she was waking from a dream, or rather a nightmare she hadn't realized she was living. "The dress," Jennifer murmured suddenly. "Mrs. Lucy, the seamstress, said someone had asked for a last-minute alteration to the hem. She said it was a special request from the Groom'S family." Patricia lowered her eyes, confirming Jennifer's suspicion. "He said it was to make you look shorter and cuter," Patricia said. "He asked for the hem to be 2 centimeters longer than usual, said it would be a romantic surprise." Jennifer understood then that her fall hadn't just been caused by the object Mrs. Eleanor saw Tyler place on the floor. It was also due to the intentionally too long dress, making her trip over her own hem. The door opened again, and in walked Ashley, Jennifer's sister, and her maid of honor. Ashley was 32 and had always been the more practical of the two sisters. "Jen, what's going on?" "Everyone's asking where you are," Ashley said, but stopped when she sensed the tension in the room. "Patricia, are you okay?" "Ashley," Jennifer said, her voice trembling, "I think I've made the biggest mistake of my life." Ashley immediately stepped closer, and Jennifer told her everything: the messages, the conversation with Patricia, the altered dress. Ashley listened in silence, but Jennifer could see the anger growing in her eyes. "That bastard," Ashley muttered. "Jen, I always thought he was a bit off, but I never imagined he'd be capable of something like this." "What do I do now?" Jennifer asked. "Everyone's out there waiting. The party's already paid for, guests came from far away. You do what your heart tells you," Ashley said, holding her sister's hands. "But if you want my advice, I wouldn't spend another minute married to someone who planned to humiliate his own wife on their wedding day." Patricia stepped forward and placed a hand on Jennifer's shoulder. "I know I have no right to ask anything after staying silent for so long, but please don't let my son destroy your life like he's destroyed so many other beautiful things. You deserve so much better." Jennifer took a deep breath and looked at herself in the mirror. The stained dress, the crooked veil, the smudged makeup, it all represented so much more than a simple accident. It represented what her life with Tyler would be, a series of planned humiliations disguised as innocent jokes. "I need to go back out there," she finally said. "But not to continue this farce." The three women left the restroom together. The reception hall was still lively, with Tyler at the center of a group of friends, gesturing animatedly as he told a story that made everyone laugh. Jennifer watched from a distance and realized how much he seemed to be enjoying himself, while she had spent the last 20 minutes crying in the restroom. That's when Brandon, the best man, approached them with a guilty expression. "Jennifer, I need to apologize to you," he said, avoiding direct eye contact. "Apologize for what?" Jennifer asked, though she already suspected the answer. "The bets. I took part in the bets about the two of you. But when I saw you crying on the floor, I felt like complete trash. This went way beyond any joke." Ashley stepped forward, clearly furious. "What kind of bets?" she asked firmly. Brandon sighed. "Tyler made several bets with the guys about how long the marriage would last, how many times you'd cry during the honeymoon, how long it would take for you to find out certain things about him." "What certain things?" Jennifer felt a knot in her stomach. "Jen, Tyler isn't unemployed because of a lack of opportunities. He was fired from his last job for workplace harassment. He systematically bullied a younger employee until she had a panic attack and had to leave. The company tried to cover it up, but everyone in the industry knows." Each revelation felt like a stab to Jennifer's heart. How had she been so blind? How had she missed the signs? "And there's more," Brandon continued, clearly struggling to speak. "Amanda, his ex-girlfriend before you, she didn't move abroad for work like he told you. She ran from him. She got a restraining order because he wouldn't stop stalking her after they broke up." Ashley held her sister's arm, feeling her tremble. "Amanda still lives here in the United States," Brandon said. "She changed cities and even her name on social media. Tyler lied to you from the very beginning." At that moment, Tyler noticed the small group across the room and began walking toward them with a forced smile on his face. "There's my wife," he shouted loud enough for several guests to hear. "Where were you all? The party can't stop because of a little stumble, right, honey?" When he got close enough, his tone changed completely, becoming low and threatening. "Jennifer, you've been playing the victim for far too long. Everyone's already moved on from your ridiculous little fall. Get back to the party and stop embarrassing me." That was the last straw. Jennifer looked at the man she had promised to love and protect just hours earlier and saw a stranger. A cruel, manipulative, and cowardly stranger. "Tyler," she said with a calmness that surprised everyone, including herself, "I'm done pretending everything's fine." "What are you talking about?" he asked, but Jennifer caught a flash of panic in his eyes. "I'm talking about the bets, the altered dress, the object you placed on the floor to make me trip. I'm talking about Amanda, the company that fired you, all the lies." Tyler's face turned red, and he quickly glanced at Brandon, who looked away. "You're being dramatic," Tyler said, trying to keep his voice low. "It's just guy stuff, you wouldn't understand." "Guy stuff?" Jennifer's voice began to rise. "Planning to humiliate your own wife on your wedding day is guy stuff?" Nearby guests started to notice something was wrong and discreetly moved closer to listen. "Jennifer, you're making a scene?" Tyler whispered, gripping her arm tightly. "Let's handle this in private." "No," she said, pulling free from his grasp. "I've spent enough time in private with your guy stuff. If you wanted my humiliation public, then my freedom will be too." That's when a firm voice rose from the group of guests. It was Hope, Jennifer's 85-year-old grandmother, who had come from Pennsylvania especially for the wedding. Hope was a petite woman in stature but a giant in personality, having raised 8 children alone after her husband abandoned her. "My granddaughter," Hope said, walking slowly but determinedly toward the group. "I've seen this story before." Everyone turned to look at the elderly woman, who wore an elegant navy blue dress and carried a small handbag. "Grandma, you don't need to get involved," Tyler said, trying to sound respectful but clearly annoyed. "Young man," Hope said, staring straight at Tyler, "I've lived 85 years on this earth and can spot a cruel man from a mile away. And you, my dear, are a cruel man." Silence spread through the room in waves as more people stopped talking to focus on the unfolding scene. "In 1962, Hope continued, I married a man who played similar jokes on me. On our wedding day, he put salt in the cake's sugar to make me spit it out in front of all the guests. Said it was just a joke. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now back to it." Jennifer looked at her grandmother with tear-filled eyes. Hope had never shared this story with the family. "I stayed married to that man for 25 years, Hope said. 25 years of little cruelties, jokes only he found funny, feeling small and stupid every day. By the time I found the courage to leave, my children were grown and I'd lost the best years of my life. Tyler tried to interrupt, but Hope raised her hand. Let me finish, young man. Jennifer, my dear granddaughter, I won't stand here silently watching you make the same mistake I did. Life is too short to waste on men who take pleasure in our suffering. At that moment, Jason, the party's DJ, approached the group. He was a young man hired through an agency who clearly looked uncomfortable with the situation. "Excuse me," he said, addressing Jennifer. "I didn't want to interfere, but I feel I should tell you something. The groom asked me to play a specific song when you fell. He said it would be the perfect moment to play Can't Help Myself, and even paid me extra to watch for the right time." Jennifer felt her legs weaken. Tyler had planned every detail, down to the soundtrack for her humiliation. "That's a lie," Tyler shouted, completely losing his composure. "This guy is making it up to cause trouble." "I have his messages right here on my phone," Jason said calmly, showing the screen. "He even sent an audio explaining how he wanted me to react when you fell." Ashley took Jason's phone and listened to the audio. Her face turned pale as she stared at Tyler with a mix of disgust and contempt. "Amanda, you need to hear this," Ashley said. In the audio, Tyler's voice was unmistakable. "Dude, it's gonna be hilarious. When she falls, I want you to play a really loud song to drown out if she starts crying. I can't let her ruin the party with drama. And then play some upbeat tracks so everyone forgets the pathetic scene." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the guests who didn't yet know the full story could feel the tension in the air. Tyler looked around and realized he had completely lost control of the situation. His face was red, and his hands trembled with anger. "Fine, I planned the fall," he finally yelled. "So what? It was just a joke. You're all making a mountain out of a molehill." It was then that Jessica, the wedding photographer, quietly approached Jennifer. "Mom," she whispered, "I photographed the entire sequence of the fall. If you want, I can show you the pictures so you can see exactly what happened." Jessica displayed the images on her digital camera. In the photos, it was clear that Tyler had bent down moments before the waltz began, placing something small and transparent on the floor. Another shot showed him staring directly at the spot where Jennifer would step, a smug grin already on his lips. "I thought it was strange at the time," Jessica admitted, "but I figured he was just fixing some fallen decoration." Nicole, one of the bridesmaids, stepped forward holding something in her hand. "Amanda, I found this on the ground where you fell," she said, revealing a small, nearly transparent glass marble. It was hidden among the rose petals. Jennifer took the object. It was a smooth marble, nearly invisible on the floor but perfectly capable of making someone slip. Tyler saw the evidence piling up against him and changed tactics. "Okay, maybe I took the joke too far," he said, trying to sound remorseful. "But it's because I love you, Amanda. I wanted our wedding to be unforgettable." "Unforgettable?" Jennifer repeated with a bitter laugh. "You're right, Tyler. This wedding will indeed be unforgettable. Just not for the reasons you imagined." That was when Megan, Tyler's cousin, who had been estranged from the family for years, appeared at the entrance of the hall. Megan was 40, and Jennifer vaguely remembered her from some old family gatherings. "Patricia called me," Megan said, speaking directly to Jennifer. "She thought I should be here." Tyler visibly tensed at the sight of his cousin. "Megan, you shouldn't be here," he snapped. "No one invited you." "And why do you think no one invited me, Tyler?" asked Megan with a firm voice. "Maybe because you knew I'd tell your fiancé what you did to me when we were teenagers." Jennifer looked between the two, realizing there were even more secrets to be revealed. "Megan, I'm begging you, don't do this," said Tyler, and for the first time since Jennifer had known him, he seemed genuinely desperate. "Jennifer," Megan said, ignoring Tyler completely. "When we were teenagers, Tyler used to play cruel pranks on me during family gatherings. Once, he put laxatives in my soda at a birthday party, and I was sick all night. Everyone thought I'd been drinking in secret. That was over 20 years ago," Tyler protested. "I was a kid." "Another time," Megan continued, "he secretly cut the straps of my bra before I went swimming. When I got in the pool, my top came off in front of all my cousins. I was 15 and traumatized for years." Patricia walked up to Megan. "Honey, forgive me for never believing you back then," she said, tears in her eyes. "I thought you were exaggerating, that it was just normal cousin teasing." "And when I finally told my parents," Megan said, "Tyler convinced the whole family I was troubled, that I made things up for attention. I distanced myself from everyone because no one believed me." Jennifer looked at Tyler and saw a complete stranger. How had she fallen for someone capable of such cruelty? "How many other people have you hurt, Tyler?" she asked. "How many other women have suffered because of you?" Tyler realized he was losing control of the situation and did what he always did when cornered. He attacked. "Enough!" he shouted, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "Jennifer, you're being ridiculous. You're making a mountain out of a molehill and embarrassing our entire family." "Our family?" Jennifer laughed bitterly. "Tyler, we don't have a family, we never did. What we have is a relationship built on lies and humiliation. You're being dramatic as usual," Tyler yelled even louder. "That's why no one can stand you for long. You turn every little thing into a huge drama." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the music had stopped, and all the guests were staring at the couple in the center of the room. Hope slowly approached Tyler. "Young man," she said, her voice quiet but carrying decades of authority, "I've seen good men and bad men in my life. Good men apologize when they're wrong. Bad men attack when confronted. You just showed everyone here exactly what kind of man you are." That's when Richard and Deborah, Tyler's parents, finally stepped in. Richard was a 60-year-old man, always respectful and polite, while Deborah looked visibly embarrassed by her son's behavior. "Tyler, stop this right now," Richard said firmly. "You're acting like a spoiled child." "Dad, you don't understand," Tyler said, trying to steady his voice. "She's making a scene over harmless jokes." "Harmless jokes?" Deborah repeated, incredulous. "Tyler, your father and I paid that young man to stay quiet about what you did at the company. We paid for Amanda's therapy after you harassed her. How many more times will we have to clean up your messes?" Jennifer froze. Tyler's parents knew everything and never warned her. "You knew?" she asked, looking at Richard and Deborah. "You knew about everything and never told me?" Richard lowered his eyes, clearly ashamed. "Jennifer, we hoped it would be different with you, that he'd matured." "We hoped you could change him," Deborah said. "It was selfish of us and we're sorry." "Change him?" Jennifer felt anger rising inside her. "You wanted me to be responsible for fixing a grown man, to serve as a guinea pig to see if he'd become a better person." No one answered, and the silence spoke volumes. That's when Michael, one of the event's waiters, discreetly approached the group. "Excuse me," he said, holding a yellow envelope. "I didn't want to interfere, but I think you should see this." Michael handed the envelope to Jennifer. "The groom asked me to give this to you after the party, but considering the circumstances, I think it's best you see it now." Jennifer opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were several printed photos and a handwritten note. The photos showed other pranks Tyler had planned for the honeymoon: a bottle of hair dye he intended to put in her shampoo, a spray that would cause skin rashes, and even colored contact lenses to swap with hers while she slept. The note read, "To my dear wife, get ready for the most unforgettable honeymoon of your life. I have so many surprises planned for you. With love, your devoted husband." Jennifer felt sick reading it. Tyler had planned to psychologically torture her throughout their honeymoon. "My God, Tyler," she said, showing the photos to everyone. "You're a psychopath." "They were just jokes," Tyler shouted, completely losing his composure. "You people have no sense of humor." Ashley picked up one of the photos and showed it to nearby guests. "Is this a sense of humor?" she asked. "Planning to give your own wife skin rashes on your honeymoon?" That's when Rachel, another one of Tyler's cousins who had stayed silent until then, finally spoke up. "Enough, Tyler," she said. "I can't stay quiet anymore. Jennifer, he did the same thing at our cousin Emma's wedding 3 years ago. He put Vaseline on the railing she was supposed to hold while tossing the bouquet. Emma slipped and sprained her ankle. "Rachel, shut up," Tyler yelled. "I won't," Rachel shot back. "Emma thought it was an accident, but I saw you putting the Vaseline there. Everyone in the family knows you act like this, but they've always pretended not to see it." Jennifer looked around the room, and noticed several people nodding in agreement. How many people knew about Tyler's true character and never warned her? "Why didn't anyone tell me?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why did everyone stay silent?" It was Hope who answered. "Because, my dear, people would rather believe problems will fix themselves than face uncomfortable truths. It's easier to pretend you didn't see anything than to have a difficult conversation." At that moment, Jennifer made a decision. She walked to the center of the room where the sound system was and took the microphone from the DJ. "Everyone, may I have your attention?" she said, her voice echoing through the hall. All the guests turned to her. Jennifer saw familiar faces, uncles, cousins, co-workers, neighbors, people who had traveled far to celebrate what should have been the happiest day of her life. "I'd like to thank you all for being here today," she said firmly. "You traveled long distances, bought gifts, took time off work to be here, and for that I owe you the truth." Tyler tried to approach, but Brandon and Richard held him back. "The truth is, there won't be a wedding today," Jennifer continued. "Not because the bride is dramatic or overreacting, as my ex-fiancé wants you to believe, but because I've discovered the man I was about to marry planned to publicly humiliate me today as a form of entertainment." A murmur spread through the room. "He bet with his friends about how long our marriage would last. He altered my dress to make me trip. He placed an object on the floor to ensure I would fall. And he had even more cruelties planned for our honeymoon." Jennifer paused and looked directly at Tyler. "But what hurts me the most isn't the cruelties he planned. It's realizing that several people in this room knew the kind of person he is and chose to stay silent. They'd rather let me find out the worst way possible than have an honest conversation with me." Some guests lowered their eyes, clearly embarrassed. "So I want to especially thank those who had the courage to speak up today. My grandmother Hope, who taught me it's never too late to start over, my sister Ashley, who always stood by me, Patricia, who finally found the courage to tell me the truth about her son, and even people who barely know me like DJ Jason and photographer Jessica, who refused to be accomplices to cruelty." Jennifer took a deep breath before continuing. "I know many of you might think I'm being dramatic, that I should handle this privately. But when someone chooses to make their cruelty public, as Tyler did today, the response must be public too." Tyler tried to approach again, but this time it was Ashley who blocked him. "Therefore," Jennifer said, looking straight at Tyler, "I want to make it clear to everyone here that this marriage is cancelled. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Because today I learned it's better to be alone and respected than accompanied and humiliated." The room erupted in murmurs and chatter. Some guests clapped discreetly, others looked shocked, and a few got up to leave. Jennifer stepped down from the small stage where the sound system was intercepted by Tyler, who finally broke free from those holding him back. "Jennifer, you can't do this to me," he shouted, gripping her arm tightly. "You're ruining my life." "Let her go," Ashley yelled, rushing to intervene. "Tyler, stop," said Richard, stepping forward quickly. "You've done enough damage already." "Dad, she's humiliating me in front of everyone," Tyler whined. "Do something." It was then that Hope slowly approached. Despite her advanced age, she radiated an authority that silenced everyone. "Young man," she said, staring straight at Tyler, "you're holding my granddaughter's arm far too tightly. Let her go, now." "Mrs. Hope, you don't understand," Tyler said, but his voice had lost all its earlier arrogance. "She's destroying my life over a joke." "Your life?" Hope repeated with a dry laugh. "Young man, your life is being ruined by your own choices. My granddaughter is just refusing to be an accomplice to your cruelty." Tyler finally released Jennifer's arm but kept arguing. "Are all women this dramatic?" he asked, looking around as if seeking support. "Can't you take an innocent joke?" That's when several women's voices rose at once. "Innocent joke?" said Megan. "You call that innocent?" Ashley asked. "Young man, you don't know what innocent means," Hope said. Even Patricia, his own mother, shook her head. "Tyler, stop, just stop," she said. "You're only digging yourself deeper." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, at that moment Jennifer realized something important. She wasn't alone. For the first time in a long while, she was surrounded by people who supported her, who recognized the cruelty of what Tyler had done. "Tyler," she said with a calmness that surprised even herself, "I'm leaving now, and once I walk through that gate, I don't want to see you in my life ever again. Never." "You can't do this," he shouted. "What about the guests? The money we spent? The gifts?" "The guests are smart people who will understand," Jennifer replied. "Money is just money, and the gifts, well, if they were given with love, people will understand that things have changed." Tyler looked around, searching for support, but found only disapproving or indifferent faces. "Brandon!" he yelled at the best man. "Are you just going to stand there? Say something." Brandon took a deep breath. "Tyler, man, I think you need to accept that you messed up badly and apologize. For real. Apologize?" Tyler laughed bitterly. "For a joke? Never." And it was that word, never, that made Jennifer absolutely certain she had made the right decision. A man who refused to acknowledge the harm he'd done, who insisted on calling cruelty a joke, would never change. "Perfect," she said, "because I'll never regret the decision I made today either." Jennifer turned to walk toward the exit but was stopped by Hope. "My dear," her grandmother said, holding her hands, "before you go, I have something for you." Hope opened her small purse and took out a little blue velvet box. "These are the rings from my marriage to your grandfather," she said. "My second marriage, not the first. I met your grandfather when I was 50 after I finally found the courage to divorce my first husband." Jennifer opened the box and saw 2 simple gold bands, worn with time. 35 years of true love and partnership," Hope said. "Keep these rings for when you find someone who deserves them, someone who treats you like the princess you are, not as the target of cruel jokes." Jennifer hugged her grandmother tightly, feeling both pain and gratitude. "Thank you, Grandma, for everything, for coming here, for speaking the truth, for giving me strength." "The strength was always in you, my dear," Hope said. "You just needed a little push to see it." Ashley approached them. "Jen, let's go? I brought regular clothes for you in the car." Jennifer nodded, and the 3 women, 3 generations of the same family, walked together toward the exit. Halfway there, they were met by Patricia. "Jennifer," she said, tears in her eyes, "I know I have no right to ask this, but can you forgive me for staying silent for so long?" Jennifer stopped and looked at the woman who had almost become her mother-in-law. "Patricia, I understand it must have been hard for you to accept that your son has these issues, but I hope now you'll help him get the professional help he clearly needs." "I'm already arranging it," Patricia said. "I should have done it years ago. Can you forgive me?" "I forgive you," Jennifer said. "But that doesn't change the fact that I can't marry Tyler. Some things are beyond forgiveness." Patricia nodded in understanding. "I know, and you're right. Thank you. So for giving me the chance to finally do the right thing." When they reached the parking lot, Ashley went to get the clothes from the car while Jennifer and Hope talked. "Grandma," Jennifer said, "do you regret staying married to your first husband for so long?" Hope thought for a moment. "My dear, I regret not having the courage to leave sooner, but I don't regret it entirely, because that suffering taught me to value true love when it came. And it gave me the strength to help other women in the same situation." "How so?" "After my divorce, I started helping women in my town who were in difficult relationships. Informally, just talking, offering support. I discovered my experience could be useful to others." Ashley came back with a bag of clothes. "Jen, I brought that blue dress you love and some comfortable shoes. Let's get you out of this princess costume and back into your own skin." Jennifer laughed for the first time in hours. "You know what? I don't think I ever want to be a princess again. I'd rather be the queen of my own castle." The 3 women laughed together, and Jennifer felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Half an hour later, Jennifer stepped out of the parking lot restroom wearing a simple navy blue dress and flats. She had removed all the elaborate makeup and tied her hair into a simple bun. "Much better," said Ashley. "Now you look like yourself again." "I feel like myself," Jennifer replied. "For the first time in months, I feel like Jennifer, not Tyler's bride." Hope smiled proudly. "So now, my dear, what are your plans?" Jennifer took a deep breath and looked up at the blue afternoon sky. Now I'm going to live. I'll travel to all the places Tyler said were too silly to visit. I'll start learning French again, which he called a waste of time. I'll adopt a cat, even though he's allergic. I'll do all the things I stopped doing because he didn't approve. What about work? Ashley asked. I'm quitting the accounting firm, Jennifer said, with a determination that surprised even herself. I've always wanted to start my own business, but Tyler said it was too risky. It's time to stop living in fear. Hope stepped closer and held her granddaughter's hands. You know, my dear, I have a little beach house in Cape Cod that's been empty for months. If you'd like to spend some time there to think, to reorganize your life, Grandma, that would be perfect, Jennifer said, tears of gratitude welling up. Thank you so much. Just then, they heard raised voices coming from the venue. Tyler was clearly arguing with someone. Let him be, Ashley said. He's not your problem anymore. You're right, Jennifer replied. For the first time in my life, Tyler's problems aren't mine to solve. The three women got into Ashley's car and drove away from Dreamland Ranch Resort. Jennifer looked in the rearview mirror at the lit-up venue where her wedding reception continued. But now it was just a party, not the start of a life of misery. 3 weeks later, Jennifer sat on the porch of Hope's beach house, sipping coffee and gazing at the ocean. She'd spent the first few days crying, not for Tyler, but for the lost time, the missed opportunities, the person she'd stopped being. But little by little, she began rediscovering herself. She woke early to walk on the beach, cooked dishes Tyler had always called too complicated, read books he deemed silly. Her phone rang. It was Ashley. Jen, how are you? I'm good, Ash. Really good, actually. So what gossip do you have for me? Well, do you want to hear about Tyler? Jennifer thought for a moment. Actually, no, but tell me anyway, just so I know I made the right choice. He's living with his parents again. Patricia actually convinced him to see a therapist. And it seems Ryan, Brandon, and his other friends distanced themselves after the wedding fiasco. What about Megan? Oh, she's great. Felt so empowered after speaking at your wedding that she decided to sue Tyler for all the humiliations from their teenage years. It won't go anywhere legally, but it's serving as symbolic justice. Jennifer laughed. Good for her. And you, how are you? I'm proud of my big sister, Ashley said. And I broke up with Philip. What? Why? Because after seeing what you went through, I started paying attention to his little cruelties. The jokes about my weight, how he'd interrupt me when I spoke, how he always found flaws in my friends. I realized I was in a toxic relationship and didn't even know it. Ashley, I'm so glad you realize that now. It was seeing your courage that helped me find mine. Thank you for being an example to me. After hanging up, Jennifer remained seated on the porch, reflecting on how such a painful experience had turned into liberation, not just for her, but for other women around her. 2 months later, Jennifer was back in New York, but not to the life she'd had before. She'd rented a small apartment in Williamsburg, a far cry from the house she'd shared with Tyler in the Upper East Side. More importantly, she'd opened her own financial consulting firm for small businesses. In the early days, she only saw 1 or 2 clients a week, but the business was growing quickly. One afternoon, as she organized papers in her new office, she received an unexpected visit, Patricia. Jennifer, I hope you don't mind me dropping by unannounced, the woman said, clearly nervous. Of course not, Patricia. Come in, please. Would you like some coffee? Patricia sat in one of the simple office chairs. I came to thank you, she said, and to share some news. Thank me for what? For having the courage to do what I should have done years ago. Tyler's been in therapy for 2 months and is already so different. Not completely healed, of course, but for the first time in his life, he's acknowledging he has problems. Jennifer felt relieved. That's wonderful, Patricia. I truly hope he becomes a better person. And the news is about Megan. After everything that happened, she decided to reconnect with the family. We're rebuilding our relationship with her. That's amazing. Jennifer, Patricia said hesitantly, I know this might sound strange, but would you like to stay part of our family? Not as a daughter-in-law, of course, but as a friend? You were the best thing to happen to all of us in a long time, even if it was brief. Jennifer was moved by the invitation. I'd love that, Patricia. You all mean a lot to me too. 6 months later, Jennifer was organizing a special event at her office. She decided to create a free support group for women leaving abusive relationships. The idea came after several clients opened up to her about their personal lives during financial consultations. Jennifer realized many women face struggles similar to hers and that her experience could help. The first meeting took place on a Thursday evening. 8 women attended, ranging in age from 25 to 67. Hope had come from Aspen just to participate. "Everyone," Jennifer began the meeting, "I'm not a psychologist or therapist. I'm just a woman who learned the hard way to recognize signs of toxic relationships. But I believe our experiences can help other women." One participant, Rebecca, 35, raised her hand. "Jennifer, I followed your story on social media. Someone filmed part of what happened at your wedding, and it went viral. When I saw that, I related so much. My boyfriend does the same kind of cruel jokes to me." "How do you feel about that?" Jennifer asked. "Confused, because he always says it's just a joke, that I'm too sensitive. Sometimes I believe the problem is me." Hope spoke up. "Sweetheart, if his behavior makes you feel bad, the problem isn't that you're sensitive. The problem is that he's insensitive." The other women began sharing similar experiences, and Jennifer realized how important it was to have a space where they could speak without judgment. A year later, the group had grown so much that Jennifer needed to rent a larger space. She had also established partnerships with lawyers and psychologists who offered free services to the group's participants. One Saturday morning, Jennifer was preparing the space for another meeting when she received an unexpected call. It was Tyler. "Jennifer," he said, his voice completely different from what she remembered. I'd like to talk to you. In person, if possible." Jennifer hesitated. "Tyler, I'm not sure that's a good idea. I understand your hesitation, but I need to apologize to you, truly, and I want to do it face to face." After thinking for a few minutes, Jennifer agreed to meet him at a neutral cafe, with Ashley present for support. When Tyler arrived at the cafe, Jennifer barely recognized him. He had lost weight, grown a beard, and something in his eyes was different. The arrogance she remembered was gone. "Jennifer," he said, sitting down slowly, "thank you for agreeing to see me. I know I don't deserve it." "Tyler, if you came here to try to win me back—" "No," he interrupted quickly. "I came to apologize, and to thank you." "Thank me?" Tyler took a deep breath. "For having the courage to call off the wedding. Because if you hadn't, I would have kept being a monster for the rest of my life, and you would have been my primary victim." Jennifer and Ashley exchanged surprised glances. "Therapy helped me understand a lot of things," Tyler continued. "I found out I have narcissistic personality disorder. It's not an excuse for what I did, but it explains why I couldn't feel empathy for the people I hurt." "And now?" Ashley asked, still wary. "Now I'm still in treatment, probably will be forever. But at least now I can recognize when I'm being cruel, and I can stop before I hurt someone." Tyler looked directly at Jennifer. "I turned your life into hell and called it love. You deserved protection, kindness, respect, and I gave you humiliation, control, and cruelty. There's no excuse for that." Jennifer felt tears in her eyes, but not from sadness. It was relief, finally hearing a true acknowledgement of what she had endured. "Tyler," she said, "I accept your apology. Not because you deserve forgiveness, but because I deserve peace." "I know I have no right to ask this," Tyler said, "but are you happy now?" Jennifer smiled for the first time during their conversation. "Very happy. Much happier than I ever was with you." Tyler nodded, clearly fighting back tears. "Good. That gives me hope that other people can be happy too, even after knowing someone like me." He stood to leave but turned back one last time. "Jennifer, I heard about your work with women in similar situations. It's amazing how you turned your pain into help for others. You were always stronger than I deserved." 2 years later, Jennifer stood in the same hall at the Dreamland Ranch Resort, where her wedding should have taken place. But now the space was transformed. The walls were decorated with banners about women's empowerment, and in place of banquet tables, chairs were arranged in a circle. It was the official launch event of the Hope Institute, a non-profit organization Jennifer had created to support women leaving abusive relationships. The name was a tribute to her grandmother, who had become a co-founder of the project. The event gathered over 200 people, support group participants, their families, partner professionals, and supporters of the cause. Jennifer was standing in the center of the hall, wearing a simple, comfortable blue dress, her hair down and a genuine smile on her face. "Everyone," she said into the microphone, "2 years ago, I fell on this very floor. It was the most painful yet liberating fall of my life." Some laughter and applause spread through the hall. "Today I dance in this same place, but this time alone, free, and surrounded by people who truly support me." Hope, now 87 but still vibrant, approached the microphone. "My granddaughter," she said, "you turned your pain into healing for others. That's what I call the alchemy of the heart." The party continued late into the night, but unlike 2 years ago, this time it was a celebration of liberation, strength, and sisterhood. When everyone had left, Jennifer stayed alone in the hall for a few minutes. She looked at the exact spot where she had fallen 2 years earlier and smiled. "Thank you, Tyler," she whispered, "for showing me who I didn't want to become and for giving me the courage to discover who I really am." She took off her shoes and, barefoot, began to dance alone in the center of the hall. There was no music, just the sound of the wind coming through the open windows. But to Jennifer, it was the most beautiful waltz she had ever danced. That's when she felt a presence and turned around. It was Ashley, who had returned because she forgot her purse. "Jen," Ashley said, smiling, "are you dancing alone?" "No," Jennifer replied, reaching out her hand to her sister. "Now I'm dancing with my family." Ashley joined her, and the two sisters danced together in the empty hall, celebrating not just Jennifer's journey, but the discovery that sometimes you have to fall to learn how to fly. 5 years later, on a sunny spring morning, Jennifer was sitting on a park bench in Aspen, watching Hope feed pigeons. At 90, her grandmother was still active and deeply involved with the Hope Institute. "Grandma," Jennifer said, "do you regret coming to my wedding that day?" Hope laughed. "My dear, that was one of the most important days of my life. It was the day I could finally use my own painful experience to prevent someone I love from making the same mistake. And if I hadn't listened to you, if I had gone through with the wedding anyway, then I would have respected your decision and kept loving you. But I would have been ready to support you when you finally realized you deserved more." At that moment, Jennifer's phone rang. It was a message from one of the newest members of her support group. "Jennifer, I wanted to thank you. Today was my first day of freedom. I broke up with my boyfriend and moved back to my mom's house. I'm scared, but I also have hope. Thank you for showing me it's possible to start over." Jennifer showed the message to Hope. "Another one," she said, smiling. "Another woman who won't waste years of her life with someone who doesn't deserve her," Hope said. "My granddaughter, do you know your work has already saved dozens of relationships?" "How so?" "Some of the women in your groups weren't in abusive relationships, but in ones that were deteriorating. By learning about healthy communication and mutual respect, they managed to improve their existing relationships." Jennifer hadn't thought of that before, but it made sense. That's true. Sandra and her husband went to couples therapy after she joined the group, and now they're happier than ever. See, sometimes teaching people about bad relationships helps them build good ones. As they walked back home, Hope asked a question that caught Jennifer by surprise. "And what about you, my dear? Have you ever thought about trying a relationship again?" Jennifer thought for a moment. "Honestly, Grandma, I was so focused on healing and helping others that I never even thought about it. And you know what? I'm fine this way. I've learned I can be happy on my own." "That's wonderful," said Hope, "because when you're complete by yourself, anyone who comes into your life will be a bonus, not a necessity." A week later, Jennifer was at the supermarket doing her shopping when she bumped into someone in the cereal aisle. It was a man around her age, with brown hair and a kind smile. "I'm sorry," he said, helping her pick up the items that had fallen. "I was distracted reading the ingredients." "It's okay," said Jennifer. "I was distracted too." "Let me guess," the man teased. "You're also trying to find cereal that's tasty and healthy." Jennifer laughed. "Exactly. It's practically impossible." "I'm David," he said, extending his hand. Jennifer, she replied, shaking it. Jennifer, you're not the Jennifer from the Hope Institute, are you? My sister attended your groups last year. That's me. How's your sister doing? Really well, thanks to you all. She got out of a toxic relationship and is now dating a great guy who treats her like a queen. They talked for a few more minutes in the supermarket aisle, and Jennifer was struck by how natural the conversation felt. David was a psychologist who worked with at-risk teens and had a sense of humor similar to hers. Look, said David, hesitating slightly, I know it might seem a little odd to ask someone I just met at the supermarket, but would you like to grab coffee sometime to talk about the social work we do? Jennifer smiled. There was something genuine about the invitation, no pressure or hidden intentions. Why not? She said. But fair warning, I'm a bit complicated when it comes to relationships. I've got a lot of stories. Everyone has stories, said David. That's what makes people interesting. 2 months later, Jennifer and David were seeing each other regularly. It wasn't officially a relationship. They'd decided to take it slow and build a solid friendship first. But Jennifer was discovering how different it was to meet someone when you're emotionally healthy. David never made jokes at her expense. He respected her opinions even when they disagreed. He supported her work and even offered to give free talks at the Hope Institute about recognizing signs of emotional abuse. One afternoon they were walking through Central Park when David asked a question. Jen, can I ask you something about your ex-fiancé? Jennifer tensed slightly. She told David the whole story, but talking about Tyler still made her uncomfortable. Sure. Were you ever afraid other men would be like him? Constantly, admitted Jennifer. For the first few months after the cancelled wedding, I analyzed every gesture, every word, looking for signs of hidden cruelty. And now? Now, I've learned to trust my intuition again. And most importantly, I've learned it's okay to be alone if the alternative is being with the wrong person. David stopped walking and turned to her. Jen, I hope you know I'd never do anything to hurt you intentionally. And if I ever do something that bothers you, even accidentally, I hope you'll tell me. Why are you saying this? Because I really like you, and I want you to feel safe with me. It was the first time someone had talked about emotional safety with Jennifer so directly. With Tyler, she'd always felt like she was walking on eggshells, trying not to trigger his bad reactions. With David, she felt on solid ground. Thank you for saying that, she said. It means a lot to me. 6 months later, on a December evening, David invited Jennifer to dinner at a special restaurant. It was the same place where they'd had their first official date, a small bistro in the Williamsburg neighborhood. During dinner, David was clearly nervous, fidgeting with his napkin and speaking faster than usual. David, are you okay? Jennifer asked. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something, he said, taking a deep breath. Jennifer's heart raced. Was this a marriage proposal? Did she even feel ready for something like that? Jen, David continued, I know you have a complicated history with formal commitments, and I completely respect that. But I wanted you to know that I've fallen in love with you. Jennifer felt warmth spread through her chest. I'm not asking you to feel pressured to say the same, David quickly added. I just wanted you to know. And I wanted to ask if you'd like to make our relationship official. Not marriage, not moving in together, nothing that makes you uncomfortable, just being officially boyfriend and girlfriend. Jennifer smiled, tears of joy welling in her eyes. David, I've fallen in love with you too. And yes, I'd love to be your official girlfriend. They sealed the agreement with a gentle kiss, very different from the possessive kisses Tyler used to give. It was a kiss of tenderness, respect, and the promise of a future. A year and a half later, Jennifer and David were organizing a special event at the Hope Institute. It was the organization's 5th anniversary, and they had invited all the women who had participated in the groups over the years. The event took place on a Thursday evening in a hall lent by one of their partner companies. Jennifer looked around and saw dozens of women chatting, laughing, and sharing stories of overcoming hardships. Everyone, she said into the microphone, when I founded the Hope Institute, I thought it would just be a small support group. I never imagined it would grow this much. Applause filled the room. Today, we've helped over 500 women. Some have left abusive relationships. Others have improved relationships that were in crisis. Some have discovered they're happy on their own. And all of them have learned they deserve respect and love. Hope, now 92 but still present at every event, stepped up to the microphone. "My granddaughter," she said in a firm voice, "you took your worst experience and turned it into the best thing you've ever done. That's what I call wisdom." During the event, several participants shared their stories. Emma, one of the first to join the group, told how she had ended a 10-year relationship and was now happily single, studying veterinary medicine at 45. Jessica, another participant, had improved her marriage after learning about healthy communication in the groups. She and her husband now regularly attended couples therapy and were closer than ever. Rebecca, who had joined the first group 4 years earlier, now coordinated a support group in another city. "What I learned here," Rebecca said into the microphone, "is that we don't have to accept crumbs of love. We can demand the full banquet or eat alone at our own table." At the end of the event, Jennifer found herself alone in the hall once more, just as she had 5 years earlier at the ranch resort. But this time, David was with her, helping to stack the chairs. "Jen," he said, "have you ever thought about writing a book about your experience?" "A book?" Jennifer laughed. "I'm not a writer. But you're a natural storyteller, and your story could help women who don't even know the Hope Institute exists." Jennifer considered the idea. Maybe it was time to share her experience with an even wider audience. "You know what?" she said. "Maybe that's actually a great idea." 2 years later, Jennifer was at the bookstore on 5th Avenue for the launch of her book, The Fall That Taught Me to Fly. The place was packed, with a line of women of all ages waiting to talk to her and get autographs. The book told her full story, from her relationship with Tyler to the founding of the Hope Institute. But more than a biography, it was a practical guide for recognizing signs of toxic relationships and building healthy ones. During the signing, a young woman around 25 approached with tears in her eyes. "Jennifer," she said, "I read your book in one night. My boyfriend does the exact same things to me that Tyler did to you. I thought it was normal." "And now?" Jennifer asked gently. "Now I know it's not normal, and I know I deserve better. I'm going to break up with him next week, after I find a safe place to live." Conversations like this repeated all afternoon. Jennifer realized her story was truly making a difference in the lives of women she would never meet in person. When the bookstore closed, Jennifer, David, and Hope went out to dinner to celebrate. Over the meal, Hope raised a toast. "To my granddaughter, who turned the worst night of her life into the best decade of hundreds of other women's lives." "Grandma," Jennifer said, "none of this would have happened if you hadn't had the courage to speak up that day at the wedding." "No, my dear. All of this happened because you had the courage to listen." David held Jennifer's hand across the table. "And I'm so proud of the incredible woman you've become," he said. That night, back at home, Jennifer looked at the photos in her apartment. There were pictures of her with Hope, with Ashley, with the participants from the Hope Institute, with David. All showed happy faces and genuine smiles. She opened the dresser drawer and took out the small blue velvet box Hope had given her on the day of the cancelled wedding. Her grandmother's rings from her second marriage were still inside, waiting. Jennifer smiled and closed the box. She knew that someday, when the time was right, with the right person, those rings would find their purpose. But for now, she was perfectly happy building her life her own way, at her own pace. 10 years after the cancelled wedding, on a beautiful fall morning, Jennifer was back at the Dreamland Ranch Resort. But this time she was there for Ashley's wedding to Robert, a history professor she'd met during grad school. Jennifer was the maid of honor, wearing a light blue dress that perfectly matched her serene mood. David was by her side as her date. They had been together for 5 years, a solid relationship built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Hope, now 95 and in a wheelchair but still sharp as ever, sat in the front row, beaming with pride for both her granddaughters. During the ceremony, Jennifer watched as Ashley and Robert exchanged vows they had written themselves. The words spoke of partnership, mutual support, growing together and respecting each other's individuality. It was exactly the kind of marriage Jennifer had once dreamed of having. When it was time for the couple's first dance, Jennifer felt a twinge of nostalgia, but not sadness. It was gratitude for having learned the difference between a love that frees and a love that traps. Ashley and Robert danced lightly and joyfully, and when Robert gently steadied her after a slight misstep, they both laughed together. It was a stark contrast to the cruelty Tyler had shown in the same situation. At the reception, David approached Jennifer. "Jen," he said, holding out his hand, "would you like to dance with me?" "Of course," she replied, accepting his invitation. They danced together in the same ballroom where she had fallen 10 years earlier, but now everything was different. She was with a man who made her feel safe, cherished and respected. She was surrounded by family and true friends, and most importantly, she was at peace with herself. "Jen," said David as they danced, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Have you ever thought about getting married again? To me specifically?" Jennifer smiled but didn't feel nervous like she had years ago when he first declared his love. "I've thought about it many times," she answered honestly. And I think yes, but with a few conditions." David laughed. "I'm listening." "First, no surprises during the ceremony. Second, I pick my own dress, no interference from anyone. Third, you promise that if I trip, you'll help me up instead of laughing at me." "I promise all that and more," David said, spinning her gently. "Then," Jennifer said, "when you officially ask me, the answer will be yes." "When I officially ask you?" David teased. "Who said I'm going to ask?" "You just did." "True," David laughed. "Jennifer Silver, will you marry me?" "David Almeida, I accept." They kissed in the middle of the dance floor, and Hope, watching from afar, whispered to Ashley, "Now yes. Now she's found someone who deserves her grandfather's rings." Jennifer and David's wedding took place a year later, a small intimate ceremony in the garden of Hope's home in Aspen. Only close family and special friends were there, including several women who had been part of the Hope Institute groups. Jennifer wore a simple white silk dress, no veil, and the rings from Hope's second marriage. A family friend, a justice of the peace, officiated, and the vows were written by the couple themselves. "David," Jennifer said during the ceremony, "you taught me that true love is a safe place where we can be completely ourselves. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, and your biggest supporter, today and always." "Jennifer," David replied, "you showed me how strength and kindness can coexist in one person. I promise to support all your dreams, respect all your choices, and love you exactly as you are, today and always." When they kissed to seal their marriage, there was no rehearsed music or choreography, just spontaneous applause and joyful tears from everyone present. The celebration was simple: a barbecue in the garden, live music from a local guitarist, and plenty of conversation among dear friends. When it was time for the waltz, Jennifer and David danced barefoot on the grass under the string lights hanging between the trees. "You know what?" Jennifer said as they danced. "I like this waltz so much better." "Why?" David asked. "Because this time, if I fall, I know you'll fall with me, and we'll laugh together." During the celebration, Patricia approached Jennifer. They had stayed in touch over the years, and Patricia had become a supporter of the Hope Institute. "Jennifer," she said, "I wanted you to know that Tyler is doing well. He's still in therapy, working at a non-profit with teenagers, and he's seeing someone." "That's good," Jennifer said sincerely. "I hope he treats that person with the respect they deserve." "He does, and you know why? Because he learned through therapy and the pain of losing you how his actions affect others." "Patricia, I never wished Tyler harm. I always hoped he'd become a better person. And he has. Not completely healed, but much better. He once said in therapy that you saved him by calling off the wedding because it forced him to see who he really was." That night, after all the guests had left, Jennifer and David sat on the garden swing at Hope's house, gazing at the stars. "Jen," said David, "do you regret anything about your past with Tyler?" Jennifer thought for a long moment. "I don't regret being with him because it led me to you. I don't regret planning the wedding because it gave me the courage to create the Hope Institute. And I definitely don't regret canceling the wedding because it taught me I'm stronger than I ever imagined. And now," asked David. "What are your plans for the next 10 years?" "To expand the Hope Institute to other cities, write more books, travel with my husband to all the places I've always wanted to see, and who knows?" She paused. "Maybe start a family." David smiled and kissed her softly. "Sounds like a perfect plan to me." 5 years later, on a sunny Sunday morning, Jennifer was in the kitchen of their new home making breakfast. Through the window, she could see David playing in the garden with Sophie, their 2-year-old daughter, who had come into their lives through adoption. The house was simple but cozy, decorated with photos of happy moments, trips, birthdays, Hope Institute events, and plenty of pictures of Sophie smiling. "Mom!" Sophie called from the garden. "Come play with us." Jennifer smiled and stepped outside where David was teaching Sophie how to plant flowers in a small garden bed. "Look, Mom," said Sophie, covered in dirt but beaming. "I'm planting hopes." "Hopes?" Jennifer asked, laughing. "That's what Daddy calls the flowers," Sophie explained. "He said Great-Grandma Hope liked planting flowers that gave people hope." Jennifer looked at David affectionately. Even after all these years, he still found simple, beautiful ways to honor his grandmother's memory. She had passed away peacefully 2 years ago at 97. "Great-Grandma Hope really did love planting hope," Jennifer said, joining them in the garden. "And you know what? She planted a lot of hope in my life too." Sophie, with the curiosity of a 2-year-old, asked, "Mom, how do you plant hope in people?" Jennifer thought for a moment, wanting to give an answer Sophie could understand. "You know when you're sad, and I give you a hug and tell you everything will be okay, that's planting hope. Or when you're scared and Daddy tells you a story that makes you laugh, that's planting hope too." "Oh," Sophie said, as if she understood perfectly. "So you plant hope in the women who come to your house to work?" Jennifer smiled. Sophie was referring to the Home Office, where Jennifer now coordinated the Hope Institute, which had grown so much it had branches in 12 US cities. "That's right, sweetheart. I help plant hope in people who've forgotten they deserve to be happy." That afternoon, while Sophie napped, Jennifer was in her office working on the script for a talk she'd give the following week at a university in New York. The theme was turning trauma into purpose. David walked in with a cup of tea. "How's it going?" he asked. "Good. I was just thinking about how to start the talk. I always begin by telling my story, but sometimes I wonder if people are tired of hearing the same thing." "Jen," David said, sitting beside her, "your story will never get old, because every time you tell it, you save a woman in the audience who sees herself in it." "You're right. Actually, I got a letter today from a girl in Boston who read my book and said it inspired her to leave an abusive relationship. She's only 19. See? Your story is preventing young women from losing years of their lives like you did." Jennifer smiled and went back to writing. She had learned that her painful experience held value when shared, and that every time she helped someone recognize signs of emotional abuse, she gave more meaning to her own journey. 10 years later, on a December afternoon, Jennifer was at the same Dreamland Ranch resort where it had all begun. But this time she was there as a guest speaker for an event about healthy relationships. Sophie, now 12 years old, was in the audience alongside David, watching her mother speak to over 300 people about her journey of self-discovery. 20 years ago, Jennifer said into the microphone, "I fell in this very room. It was the most humiliating fall of my life, but also the most transformative. Because that fall taught me that sometimes we need to hit rock bottom to learn how to fly." The audience, mostly young women, listened intently to every word. "What I've learned over these 20 years is that healthy relationships aren't perfect, but they're safe. In healthy relationships, you can be vulnerable without being ridiculed. You can disagree without being punished. You can grow without being limited." During the break, a young woman around 20 approached Jennifer. "Mrs. Jennifer," she said nervously, "I wanted to thank you. My mother read your book 5 years ago and it helped her leave an abusive marriage. If she hadn't found that courage, I would have grown up thinking it's normal for men to treat women cruelly." "How is your mother now?" Jennifer asked. "Very happy. She went back to school, graduated in education, and is now dating a wonderful man who treats her like a queen." Conversations like this repeated throughout the event, confirming for Jennifer that her decision to turn pain into purpose had been the right one. That evening at dinner with David and Sophie, Jennifer reflected, "You know, sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd stayed married to Tyler." "You'd be unhappy," Sophie said, with the honesty typical of pre-teens. "And I wouldn't exist," David laughed. "Sophie's right, and besides, hundreds of women wouldn't have gotten help from the Hope Institute." "It's true," Jennifer said. "It's funny how the worst experiences of our lives can turn into the best things we do." "Mom," Sophie said, "when I grow up, I want to help people like you do." "In your own way, sweetheart. Everyone has a unique way of planting hope in the world." That night, as she tucked Sophie into bed, Jennifer thought of all the women she'd met over the years. Women who'd left toxic relationships, women who'd improved troubled ones, women who'd learned to be happy alone. She thought of Hope, her warrior grandmother who had passed 8 years ago, but whose legacy lived on in the Institute. She thought of Ashley, who had built a beautiful, balanced marriage. She even thought of Tyler, who, according to Patricia, had become a better man and was now helping at-risk youth. But mostly, she thought of herself, the insecure woman she had been, the strong woman she'd become, and the whole woman she was now. Before bed, Jennifer stopped by her office and read some emails that had come in during the day. There were speaking invitations, thank you notes from support group participants, and a publisher's proposal for her second book. But the email that caught her attention most was from a 16-year-old girl who had watched her talk online. "Mrs. Jennifer, my name is Caroline, and I'm 16. I watched your talk at school and wanted to thank you for teaching me that love shouldn't hurt. My boyfriend always said his cruel jokes were displays of affection, but now I understand he was wrong. I broke up with him yesterday, and for the first time in months I feel free. Thank you for showing me I deserve respect. When I grow up, I want to be strong like you." Jennifer smiled and replied to the email, offering support and resources to the young woman. Another life touched, another woman who wouldn't waste precious years learning painful lessons. 25 years after the cancelled wedding, on a sunny spring morning, Jennifer was walking along the beach in Cape Cod. At 55, she had retired from her daily role as director of the Hope Institute, but remained active as a consultant and speaker. David, now graying but still the same kind man she had met, walked beside her. Sophie, 17, was at home preparing for her psychology college entrance exams. "Jen," David said, "have you thought about what you want to do in the next 25 years? Jennifer laughed. "I'll be 80 in 25 years. I hope I'm still alive." "Of course you will be, and you'll probably still be giving talks and helping people." "Maybe. Or maybe it'll be time to stop talking about the past and start living fully in the present." They stopped at a large rock and sat, watching the waves break against the sand. "You know something?" Jennifer said. "I never properly thanked you." "Thank me for what?" "For showing me what a healthy relationship looks like. For being patient with my insecurities. For supporting all my projects. For being an amazing father to Sophie." David held her hand. "Jen, you don't have to thank me for any of that. I did it all because I wanted to, because I love you." "Exactly," Jennifer said. "That's the difference. With Tyler, I always felt like I owed him something, like I had to earn his love. With you, I know I'm loved just for being me." They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the ocean. Jennifer thought of all the women she'd met over the years, all the stories of resilience she'd witnessed. "David," she finally said, "I think I've finally figured out my true purpose in life." "What is it?" "It's not just helping women leave bad relationships. It's helping people recognize good ones, teaching the difference between love that sets you free and love that traps you." "And how do you plan to do that?" "By starting a new chapter for the Hope Institute. Instead of focusing only on toxic relationships, we'll also teach about healthy ones. Workshops for couples, talks on communication, courses on emotional intelligence." David smiled. "Another project. I should have known you'd never stay still." "You know me well," Jennifer laughed. "But this time, I want it to be our project. You have so much to teach about healthy relationships too." "Our project?" David looked surprised and moved. "I'd love that." That afternoon, when they returned home, they found Sophie studying at the kitchen table. "Sweetheart," Jennifer said, "how's studying going?" "Good. I was reading about social psychology and remembered something you always say." What's that? That we don't have to settle for crumbs of love when we can have the whole feast. Jennifer and David smiled. Sophie had grown up hearing these lessons and made them part of her own worldview. Sophie, David said, your mum and I were thinking of starting a new project. Want to hear about it? Sophie closed her book, interested. Of course. They shared their idea of expanding the Hope Institute to include education on healthy relationships, and Sophie listened eagerly. Can I suggest something? She said when they finished. Of course, Jennifer replied. How about adding a program for teenagers? To teach people my age about healthy relationships before they make the same mistakes many adults do. Jennifer looked at David with pride. Her daughter had inherited not only her emotional intelligence, but also her desire to help others. That's an excellent idea, said David. Prevention is always better than cure. 3 years later, the new project at the Hope Institute was in full swing. They offered workshops for couples, school lectures on healthy teenage relationships, and even a free online program for those looking to improve their existing relationships. Sophie, now a psychology major, was interning at the Institute and had developed a specific program for young people aged 16 to 25. One Friday afternoon, Jennifer was in her new office, smaller and cozier than the previous one, when she received a call that would change her perspective once again. It was Patricia, now a 75-year-old woman. Jennifer, dear, I need to tell you something, she said, her voice trembling. What is it, Patricia? It's about Tyler. He passed away yesterday. Jennifer felt as if the air had been knocked out of her lungs. Despite everything that had happened, Tyler had been an important part of her life for 2 years. How? She asked. A heart attack. Sudden. He was working at the non-profit, helping a troubled teenager with family issues when it happened. Jennifer stayed silent for a moment, processing the news. Patricia, I'm so sorry for your loss. How are you holding up? I'm okay, all things considered. Jennifer, I wanted you to know, in the last few years of his life, Tyler always spoke of you with respect and gratitude. He said you saved him by calling off the wedding. Patricia, let me finish. He asked me, if anything ever happened to him, to give you a letter he wrote years ago. Can I mail it to you? Jennifer hesitated. Did she really want to read a letter from Tyler after all this time? You can send it, she finally said. And Patricia, if you need anything at all, call me. 3 days later, Jennifer received an envelope with familiar handwriting. She opened it with David by her side in their backyard. The letter read, Jennifer. If you're reading this, it's likely because I'm no longer here to say these words in person. I hope you're well, that you're happy, that you found the love you always deserved. I know I can never undo the harm I caused you. I know I turned what should have been the happiest day of your life into the most humiliating one. I know I planned cruelties no one deserves, especially someone I claim to love. But I wanted you to know that your courage in calling off our wedding didn't just save you, it saved me too. And it saved everyone I might have hurt if you hadn't forced me to see who I truly was. In recent years, working with at-risk teens, I've used my own experience to identify young people with abusive tendencies and help them seek treatment before they hurt others. In a way, you gave me a purpose I never would have found on my own. I'm not asking for forgiveness because I know I don't deserve it. I'm just thanking you for being strong enough to say no to a life of suffering and for turning your pain into help for others. You were always a better person than I deserved. I hope life has given you everything I was incapable of giving. With respect and gratitude, Tyler. P.S. My mother probably already told you, but I wanted it to come from me. I managed to have a healthy relationship in the last 5 years of my life. Karen is a wonderful woman who taught me what real love is. We never got to marry because I died too soon, but she made me understand how a relationship should be. Thank you for giving me the chance to learn that. Jennifer finished reading the letter with tears in her eyes. They weren't tears of sadness or anger, but of a kind of closure she didn't know she needed. How do you feel? David asked gently. At peace, Jennifer said. Finally at peace with everything that happened. Are you going to the funeral? Jennifer thought for a moment. Yes. I think I owe it to Patricia, and maybe to myself too. Tyler's funeral was small and quiet. Jennifer arrived with David and sat at the back of the chapel. Patricia saw her and gave a discreet nod, clearly grateful for her presence. During the ceremony, several people spoke about the work Tyler had done with young people in recent years. A 17-year-old boy stepped up to the microphone and said, "Tyler saved me. I was starting to treat my girlfriend badly, just like my dad treated my mum. Tyler recognized the signs and convinced me to go to therapy. Because of him, I learned to love in a healthy way." Other young people shared similar stories. Apparently, Tyler had spent the last years of his life breaking cycles of abuse in dysfunctional families. After the ceremony, Patricia approached Jennifer. "Thank you for coming," she said. "It means a lot to me." "How are you, Patricia?" "Sad, but also proud. My son became a good man in these last years. Not fully healed, but good. And that was only possible because you had the courage to say no that day." Jennifer hugged Patricia and said goodbye. As she left the chapel, she felt as if a weight she hadn't even known she was carrying had finally lifted from her shoulders. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. If you have a similar experience to share, leave us an honest comment. Do you think Jennifer made the right choice by calling off the wedding? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories.